Welcome back to the garage. So, wanted to talk about some updates and some progress I made on the truck. And as you can see, the back of the truck is basically still apart, but despite that, actually some pretty big progress has been made. Just to kind of recap, this is an 03 F350 6-liter Power Stroke. And it was a leaf spring front end that I've converted into a coil-over 4-link, but basically it's a 2016 axle. And then the rear is also getting the same treatment. It is going to be a 2016 rear axle using the 8-inch longer springs that you're going to find in the more modern versions of the Power Stroke diesels. So I already have the springs. So the whole suspension kit was a BDS 4-inch kit. So the springs and the coilovers came together, so they're kind of matched. But the bracketry, that bracket and that bracket are separate, and those came from PMF Fabrication. And essentially, they allow you to use the newer style springs on the old trucks, but I wanted to talk about why this may be a bad idea for some people, unless you're really willing to get your hands dirty and figure this whole thing out. And so, first thing is, you don't have to replace that one. You don't have to, but I did anyway. And the reason why PMF has got some improvements made to the design that'll keep everything articulating nicely and blah blah blah, but in either case, just to talk about that one, you're only going to have to drill these 2 holes, 1, 2, and if you look, it is oblong on the top and on the bottom, but in the middle it is just a hole. It's a little bit confusing why they would have made it like that, but essentially how it works is, well, at least what I did, was I put these 4 corner bolts in and I aligned the bracket so that the bolt fell dead center on all of them. So once you get that all happy, again, you don't have to drill these 4 holes, they're already pre-drilled, you just got to pop the rivets out and the bracket, and then you just would drill these 2 holes. But I didn't like the hardware that they provided, so even though it is 4 bolts this exactly the same size, I stepped that up to the next size up bolt, which is probably unnecessary, but I did it anyway. And again, so just get it all lined up dead center and then drill those holes in. I have no idea why they would have made it like that, but I'm sure there's a good reason. One thing you're going to have to take note of is right there on my trailer hitch, it does hit that bracket. So on the other side, I had already clearanced it, but I just took my air grinder and flap wheel and I just gave it a little shave so that it'll clear everything nicely. It's hard to see on camera, but you just got to take my word from it. You want to get that shave down so it does not collide. Okay, so talking about the front bracket, which is the most important bracket, right? Because that's the one you're going to want to basically get if you decide to convert yours over. Now, I've seen people take the original bracket right there, and then just move the whole bracket over one position, re-drill the center hole, and then re-drill the other 3 holes. And that seemed to work, but in all honesty, I was confused because I was like, well, that seems like a great idea, but what do you do about that piece right there, which is your e-brake cable bracket, which is pretty awesome that PMF has made like kind of like a window system, and it clearanced it so that whole unit slips over top of it, so you can retain your factory bracket and cable system, and you don't have to cut it off and grind it smooth or re-weld it or whatever. It's just kind of put it on there and go. But to be honest with you, that sounds really easy until you realize this bracket is a pain in the ass to figure out where it needs to go. And the way I did it, I'll show you. So coming over the other side, and mind you, I already kind of spray painted over it already. But so these are your 3 holes on your bracket originally, and these are the 3 holes that I drilled, and then there is 2 more in the front. Now you're not able, so what you can do is you leave the bracket on, and then it kind of helps you line up the new bracket, but you need to be a smidge over. Now basically from the center line to the next spring center line, it's going to be 8 inches longer. So if you want to index it using that method, it's kind of how I did it, just to verify, and I made sure that my springs bolt center was in fact 8 inches, and where 8 inches lies is, so there's going to be 2 holes, I believe. No, I'm sorry. There's 3 holes here, but they're undersized and not in the right place. So, but you use those holes center line as your center line for your bracket. And what I mean by that, so if you were to find the small hole there and the small hole there and that hole, and you drew a center line right down the middle, and you came to the back over here on this bracket, and you found the centers of those holes, even though they may not fall on the same, like, you know, on the frame rails, they won't line up, but the center lines should line up, so that way you'll know that you indexed your bracket somewhat properly. And that's how I did it. Now, it is a pain in the ass to drill holes where holes already exist. I cheated. I used a mag drill with that special sort of end mill bit, which I can go super slow and just kind of like slowly, and you can see my mag drill skipped on me and made a little scar there, but I was able to get the holes in there. And you're gonna want to upsize it, and I'll tell you why. Because you have to bolt the bracket in, and you also have to drill 3 holes on the very bottom over here. I think it's, yep, that one, and that one. There's 3 holes you have to drill, and on the bracket, there they are. There's the 3 holes, and they're smaller, but you have to drill those 3 holes. And once you get the bracket tight against the frame, you want it tight underneath on the frame too. So it's kind of a give and take. You're gonna, you know, you don't want your bolt to be binding up and being all cocked inside the frame, but you also don't want your holes being oversized. But unfortunately, with this situation, you just got to do it that way. You just got to add a little bit of an oversized hole. Oh, I mean, really, that's the original hole size. Oh, sorry. That's the original hole size right there on the, where am I spinning my finger? Right there, original bolt hole. And now this one. And you're just going to have to give yourself some wiggle room, because the actual bracket does not have any wiggle room built into it. And the reason why is because that fillet weld right there is not there, because the bolt's head needs to clearance in that area. So there's not a lot of meat on the side here. That's kind of actually a little bit of a shittiness in the design. They should have added a little bit more meat, but I'm sure it's just fine. And now it does contain 1 less bolt on the side, but it contains 3 bolts and a bottom plate, which the original bracket does not contain. So I've seen some concern about that on the internet, but only one way to find out, right? But other than that, that is the majority of the update. It actually takes a long ass time to get to these steps, because you got to knock off all the rivets, get all the dirt out of the way. You know, you got to drill it, and you're stepping on metal shavings, and you get that out of your pants, and you got to eat dinner. So by the time you get all that shit done, your day is basically gone. So one step at a time over here.